I think that should be good enough. The brightness here. And start. Okay, let's try that again. We got 7 people now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the G1 versus G4 My Little Pony panel, where we are going to compare the original cartoon from the 1980s, My Little Pony and Friends, and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, that's currently running today. And we're going to compare both their strengths and weaknesses with each other. See how things have changed. See how entertainment as an industry has evolved over the years, especially within the same franchise. And many people see G4 as the best generation of the My Little Pony brand, and that's understandable. And I can to an extent agree to that. But let's not kid ourselves. There are some things in G1 that you might be surprised. It's actually better than you may give it credit for. So let's take a closer look. And we got 9 people now. All right, so I'll do the honors of starting. Actually, let's introduce ourselves. I am on YouTube known as Doughboy123X. And on DeviantArt, I am Caesar Light. I'm still very much a newbie artist. I have very basic skills, and that's about it. Not much else to say. But let's move on to the more interesting part. That is my second co-host, Al1701. Introduce yourself.
G1 superior, G4 inferior.
He's going to spend his entire time trying to take whatever jabs he can at Friendship is Magic at any given opportunity. Is that what you're going to do?
I really wish I had Soundwave's voice auto-tune.
Yeah. All right. Starbat could not make it today, unfortunately. He had a lot of business stuff going on and just has a lot of work to do with his college and everything. So unfortunately, we can't have him today. But hopefully next year, because we may do something next year. We'll talk more about that later. But we have 2 new co-hosts from last year. Ginkadia, aka Springheart the Llama. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Springheart the Llama. I make YouTube videos, pony art, and I'm also a bug tester for Legends of Equestria.
I need to play that game.
It's buggy, but very fun.
All right. And last but not least, we have Zion Brony Craze. Introduce yourself.
Hello there, I am Zion Craze. I make classic MLP reviews, or old school pony reviews as I call them. I also have a DeviantArt page where I have drawn some pictures and I really need to draw some more.
Yeah, it's good to know that slowly but surely more Generation 1 fans have been showing themselves up, have been gaining interest. But without further ado, let's begin. The best part, that is the heroes themselves, the ponies themselves. I believe I will be handling this part. Everyone will have their turn as we go through the categories. Hi, everyone. Keep coming in. We have about...
Actually, Caesar?
Yeah?
Are you sure that you have the computer on the right program? Because I'm just seeing the first slide.
Yeah, I'm seeing it as well. I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, likewise.
Oh. Let me quickly see if I can fix that.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, all right. Now, okay. Back to play. Okay. Now I'm going to jump to the next slide, and you 3 tell me if it changes with it. Do you see a change?
No.
Huh. That's weird. Let me try this.
Apparently, you just have to change it manually because for some
reason... I may have to change it manually if that's the case.
Technical difficulties.
Yay!
Yeah, it's a
okay. Is it changing? Okay, we'll just stick with that then. Yeah. I wanted some pretty transitions, but this will have to do. Okay, we have like 14 people now. So, yay. Okay, so let's start with the pros first. Probably the biggest thing that this generation has that I think the only exception I can think of is maybe Tails, that the other generations didn't have, is that it has a defined main cast. It has a very clear, concentrated focus of main characters, that it being the main six. They're very cartoony, over the top, they're silly, they're fun, they're entertaining, they have very eccentric personalities, and they all have varying levels of character development. They all, well, maybe not all of them, hence on the varying, have different forms of character development, and we see them grow throughout the series. Now, what could possibly be wrong with them? Well, some could say they're a little too gimmicky at times, and I think all of us can agree. I think at times they feel like they're trying to be a little too jokey, a bit too, and especially they're being more blatant with their personalities. They're very much more. They tend to be more in your face than cartoons of back then. They're very much more, like as Al here would put it, they shout their personalities.
Actually, say they scream them at the top of their lungs, but yeah.
Yeah. And as for coming off as too important, well, I never really thought about that until the season 5 finale happened, which the cutie remark. And the fact that Starlight Glimmer stopping the friendship destroyed the world gave me a bad impression that they are the only ponies that matter and nobody else does. And I don't know. That just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So, yeah, those are the kind of things.
Nature abhors a vacuum, people. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Yes,
the
exactly.
elements would have found somebody.
Yes, it seems like nobody else matters. I mean, Slice of Life does try to remedy this by saying everyone else has their own story, but that's nice, but it seems like they are the only heroes of Equestria to have lived. So it is kind of that is a bit irksome to me, personally. But yeah, but now let's look at the original main cast from Generation 1, which, funny thing is, we'll actually get to that in the cons. There's a greater variety of ponies. There isn't a smart one, a fun one, or whatever. There's a lot more overlapping in terms of personality traits and everything with this cast. They're more subtle and underplayed, which makes them arguably a little more realistic, would you say?
Yeah.
And they have a strong sense of community. They do a lot of stuff together, just as a whole, as a group, as a herd, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any comments?
They do have a strong sense of community because they basically all live in the same house, so it's kind of hard not to be.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot more. It's a lot more inclusive. It's much more smaller, but not tightly knit community of ponies.
Mm-hmm.
The downside is, as I was building up to earlier, there really isn't a main character. There isn't a Twilight Sparkle. There really isn't a main 6. If anything, it's more like a main 12 per se. And I think that's a bit of an issue because on one hand, on the good side, it makes you don't get tired of them as quickly, but at the same time, especially since there hasn't been that many, this original show has nowhere near as many episodes as Friendship is Magic has. A lot of ponies are just left untouched. So that leaves them potentially bland. And there isn't as much character progression as you would like. There are a few exceptions, but not as much as Friendship is Magic has done. So, any comments from you three?
Well, the comparison I make is the G1 ponies were characters that you needed more time to really understand. It's like talking to a person where you don't get them the first minute. You need to talk to them, converse with them, and to get a sense of who they are. But sadly, they were drawn away before you could really get the answers. I mean, imagine if Friendship is Magic just halfway through Sisterhood Social ended. That's what the original series was.
Yeah.
And like Wind Whistler, who was kind of the main character of G1 by default, she really only had about as much exposure, even if you include the movie, as Twilight Sparkle did through Look Before You Sleep. And really, how much did you know, and how much did you like Twilight Sparkle through Look Before You Sleep?
Yeah, quick bit of trivia. I heard someone say that Gusty is the one who had the most screen time in this show. Is that right?
Gusty or Fizzy?
Gusty.
No, I mean it's either Gusty or Fizzy. Both of them got a lot of screen time, but they never got a specific focus.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's move on. So that's the ponies. Let's talk about the villains. I'm sure this is the part everyone loves to see from both shows, actually. Let's look at the G1 first. The pros for them is the fact that there's a greater variety of species, a greater variety of types of villains. G4's villains are all more pony based, are more just magic users and such, and that's about it. And there really isn't as much variety as you would think. Here, there's a great variety. There's humanoids, there's talking pigs, there's as you can see on screen, Grogar. There's who else was there? There's T-Rex, there's Katrina, there were the witches, there was Queen Bumble and her bees, etc. They have a genuine sense of menace and lackeys to work with. Meaning here's the thing: the G1 villains never really had sidekicks per se, so they don't really have that as much opportunity to really show off their personality.
You mean G4?
Yes, G4. Whereas with G1, they were able to talk with someone more regularly, and thus you're able to get a better idea of who they are and why they do what they do. So I think sidekicks, as frowned upon as they are, do serve a good purpose. As for the cons, this one's a little tricky because we really had to rack our brains around this one. They don't get as much setup. They mostly just come out of nowhere. They're just there. Like Porcina's a great example of this. She just she exists now. Like, where was she this whole time? Why is she only now doing all this? And there are many other villains that are kind of like that. Not all of them, but most of them. They sometimes get too much screen time, and this is definitely a big problem because, as we've mentioned before, the ponies themselves did not get as much development. And I think this is partly to blame because the villains got a lot more screen time than them at sometimes. So that's an issue. And very little lasting impact. What we mean by this is that, could you explain this, Springheart?
So they come into the story like Monster of the Week, but then they have no impact on the world around them.
Not really. They come and go.
By the next week, it's, what they are has been completely forgotten. What they are, what they've done has been completely forgotten. And we got the new villain. I mean, each story in G1 was self-contained.
It was a lot more self-contained. It was a lot more just, here's a villain, she's done, next one. That's pretty much it. Whereas G4 has a lot more build-up. And speaking of G4, Springheart, would you like to take care of this?
Sure, I would love to. Pros of Gen 4. Naturally super powerful, have backstories and motivation to why they're doing what they're doing, and all of them know how to make an entrance, guys. Razzle dazzle. It works.
Oh yes, it totally works. I think all four of us here at this hosting, would you say your favorite villain is Chrysalis?
Oh,
currently?
No.
No.
I would be a Discord fan.
I'm a Discord fan too, but currently it's Chrysalis. But let's move on to the cons. Proceed, Springheart.
Alright, so cons of this generation is many of them are defeated by the Deus Ex Machina machine, which is basically the elements of harmony and friendship. The ponies don't have to figure out like a trap or anything like that. It's just, here is
the MacGuffin.
Magic and it fixes everything. Most of them have a similar sort of backstory, and what we mean by that is a lot of these characters or villains are from Celestia's past, and she
All
wasn't able
1,000
to
years
defeat
ago.
them. Yeah. And too many of them are redeemed. So Chrysalis is number one right now because she has not been redeemed.
Yeah, and Sunset
But
Shimmer and Discord, and that's the interesting thing. Like early on in the show, it was all about they were all defeated by Deus Ex Machinas, and currently they're pretty much all of them are being redeemed. It's sort of an interesting shift. At the same time, it's leaving out what G1 handled so well, and that is they most of them were defeated with wits and with brain power or even just your strength alone at some points.
yeah,
which I think goes into the strengths and weaknesses of G1, G4 respectively. With G1, because you have that greater variety, you have many potential heroes to face the villains who each had their own strengths. So how they defeat the villain was different from Pony to Pony, so there was more of a variety of solutions.
Yeah.
With the center being Twilight Sparkle, who, although intelligent, is not very witty. Almost all of it is find the magic MacGuffin and blast the enemy with it because that is how she
Friendship
works.
is magic. That's pretty much the answer. Yep. Before we move on, we have almost I believe 20 people here now.
Ooh.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. Who wants to talk about the world? I think I do, but if any of you three want to, I'll let you have it.
I'm waiting for the story, man.
Okay. I guess I'll talk about.
I'm waiting for music.
Okay, I'll talk about this one.
proceed.
World. The G1's world, Dream Valley, Ponyland. Yeah, I think the entire continent is called Ponyland, right?
No. Ponyland supposedly is an area that's like the size of Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
At least that's what the writer's guide had described it as. So whatever the greater continent is, they've never said.
Yeah, it's never really quite specified. But anyway, what I like about this world is that it's very diverse. There's a lot of different places. You got your ice cold lands, your hot scorching deserts, volcanoes, dark forests, underground worlds, and many different towns and civilizations. There's a lot of intriguing lore, like probably Al's favorite example, the Temple of the Ancients from the Magic Coins. What? Oh, Ruins of the Ancients.
Ruined City of the Ancients.
Right. All of that stuff is really cool. It really catches your imagination and intrigue. And also, more defined sense of magic. What I mean by that is that I'm mostly saying this because Friendship is Magic's magic rules are never really consistent. It really is just anything goes, except when it doesn't. So that's sort of an issue with me, and I think G1 has a much better handle of this. It's just probably the most basic way to put it is that there are many magical items in the world, and when it comes to unicorns, there are no alicorns outside of animation errors. Unicorns have their own. I think almost all unicorns can quote unquote wink, which basically means teleport. And outside of that, they all have their personal magic. Like Fizzy can make bubbles, Gusty can blow wind, and Galaxy can burn things with their horn. Is there anything I'm missing, or is that about it?
Ribbon has telepathy, and Buttons has levitation.
Right. So as for the cons, as diverse as it is, it can also be confusing. As I said, there's no map or anything, so it has never really been clearly defined where everything is. So it can be hard to get a grasp on that. It is underbuilt and unconnected. What I mean by that is that as intriguing as the lore is, it's never really built upon. It's sort of just shown, but never really explored as much as we would like to. And unconnected, what I mean by that is that there are so many civilizations that are just so separate from anything else. And to be honest, it's not that much different in G4. yeah, as much as people likes to think that Equestria is connected, it's very there are many. Everything seems to be isolated as well. Like especially after Daring Done with a release, that just confused me. But
definitely.
oh yeah, but still, the world. Gen 1 world is great. It does have its flaws. However, G4's world, in my personal opinion, I think is actually weak. I don't think it's as great as everyone makes it out to be, but that's just me. But let's talk about the pros first. It is more connected. There is more of a network. There's different cities, there are trains and zeppelins and newspapers, and it's richly populated. G1's world felt a lot more desolate when you think about it. It felt like almost like a post-apocalyptic world or something. And Equestria has a more defined culture, and when I say that, as Al here would put it, it's basically America.
Yeah, it's America and Southern Canada with pony pun names.
Yeah, and there's Egypt too. So,
which is just so confusing. I mean, where's the Miami pun?
We'll get it soon enough. Next, my biggest beef with Equestria as a whole is just the racists suck in this show. Like, I know I sound harsh, but let me ask you this: who cares about the yaks? Who cares about the dragons? I got 3 hands here. Who cares about the griffins? I got quite a number of people care about the griffins and Griffinstone. Who cares about the crystal ponies? I'm surprised. Quite a number of people do. But for me personally, and I think all 4 of us can agree, the races are just like outside of like you know how people like to joke about the Pony Master race. I'm starting to believe that's actually true because everyone else still has nothing to offer. They're all just down in the dumps. They're all in a dead end, and that just is not interesting to me.
Hacks Equestria.
Yeah. And also the magic and technology in this world, like as I mentioned before, magic just does not make sense in this world. It's just anything goes. And technology is kind of the same issue. Like they have trains and light, and I think even at some point they had like a giant screen in Manhattan, I think. But yet they don't have TV or telephones. So
supposedly they have lasers.
Yeah,
like industrial cutting lasers.
Yeah, for that music show in the main attraction. So yeah, the technology is just sort of anything goes. So and of course this bothers Al especially horse puns everywhere. Manhattan. I know him for Appaloosa. Am I forgetting something? Philadelphia. Trottingham.
Canterlot.
Canterlot sounds more fantastical and timeless.
I like Vancouver.
Yeah, man.
I'm waiting for Miami to be mentioned at some point.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Saddle Arabia.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that, and I'm starting to doubt that after Daring Done came out, after we saw Somnambula. So, let's move on. Who wants to talk about the visuals?
I can do it.
All right, take it away, Springheart.
Alright, so visuals of Gen 1, the pros were very detailed, hand-painted backgrounds that gave you a balance of realistic and whimsical feel to them. And a lot of the backgrounds and just the atmosphere, like they had just the color tones they used in this show really set the mood. So like when you saw the villain for the first time, it'd be dark and intimidating, and then like you go to Dream Valley and it's colorful and bright and everything's grand. And so they had a really good job of doing that.
Yeah. If there's one thing that both Rescue from Midnight Castle and The Return of Tambalon did so spectacularly well, is that it had a very nice dark atmosphere.
Very spooky, scary.
Definitely.
Yes. And let's talk about the downsides, because there's quite a bit of them in this.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so the cons of Gen 1 is there were many animating errors. So there would be sometimes they'd be like, oh, he's stealing your shadow, but there'd be no shadow in sight. You're like, oh, I froze the small penguin, but the penguin in the next shot is not frozen anymore. There's just a lot of
Probably my favorite choppy animation is from I think it was called Magic Coins, where what was her name? Was it Sweet Stuff that tripped over the treasure chest? They were playing ball together. She trips over and lands over the chest and goes sliding across the ground. I'm like, what is?
Yeah.
Was that intentional or not? What happened? That is such a weird, funny animation.
Friction ceased to exist for 5 seconds.
Yeah, no friction.
Well,
that's a power slide.
You slide across the ground. But it was actually in the real Ghostbusters box set, but they actually discussed this issue. Namely, this was a time when the internet was in its infancy, and you couldn't ship video files via the internet. So the process of animation was the storyboards were drawn up here in the United States, airmailed to the studio in Japan or Korea. They animated it. Oh, they also had an animation script which had to be translated into Japanese or Korean. So they animate it, they film it, they take the film, they airmail it all the way back to the United States in order to have it quality checked. And if they needed something done, remember, this is all hand-drawn. They would have to airmail it back to the studio, have them redo it, and then airmail it back. And they said basically it was so time-consuming and so expensive, animation errors would just be allowed to slide because they figured that it wasn't worth the trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, you can go ahead with the last point, Springheart.
And another con to this gen was that there were about, I think 12 different pony designs. So it was a lot of mishmashing of the same outline.
Yeah, a lot of similar.
14,
yeah.
14, sorry.
Right, a lot of similar pony designs. And to be fair, early on in Friendship is Magic kind of had this issue too, but they definitely got a lot better with that. A lot more diversity in designs and characters and such. And I mean, great for toy makers, but not so great for the animation itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now Springheart, let's get on to
the pros of Gen 4 was that it has lovely smooth animation.
Oh yes, beautiful.
Very unique pony designs, like we said before, like the first couple seasons, not so much, but they've gotten a million times better.
Yeah.
And very colorful. All the ponies stand out as their own unique character visually.
Yep. If there's probably the number one best thing about Friendship is Magic for me personally, is the animation. It is really, really good, even by today. So, and we really had to nitpick when it comes to the cons.
Yes, these are
I chose this one specifically for Al.
Okay, so the cons that we finally decided on were that the backgrounds are stylized, but they almost feel flat. Like it visually kind of looks like there's depth to them, but it still feels flat somehow.
They have gotten better, but it's still not quite enough.
Yeah.
You just can't beat, hand painted backgrounds. You just can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if anything, the more detailed that they've gotten, it's like the further they've slid into the uncanny valley, because it's like it doesn't look like it's so much detail to that depth. It's like details put there to mimic depth. Because, like I said, you can still tell it's vector art and it's flat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as the overly light and pale at points is a little tricky to talk about, but I can say that the colors, while are very nice, I think some of the tone and atmosphere through the visuals are a little too safe, a little too light. There isn't enough contrast, is what I'm trying to say, in terms of color tones.
Right, like
it's too pastel.
Yeah, like comparing the Jewel Desert in G1 to the desert scenes we've seen in Friendship is Magic, and you really got the sense of the desolation and a welcoming atmosphere of the Jewel Desert, with its oranges and reds contrasted with the purples of the Crystal Plant Life. While the desert scenes in Friendship is Magic, it's blue sky and yellow ground. And
in the case of Daring Dunn, it was in the case of Daring Dunn, it was tan sky and brown ground.
Yeah.
Now Al, I'm actually going to give you this one. Talk about the meme faces that annoy you so much.
I hate the faces that they do in Friendship is Magic because
we're making some enemies today.
If you take like the king of over-exaggerated animation, Curtis Cowardly Dog, when they do his infamous freakouts, it's always a simple thing. It's for him screaming. So basically, all they do is they just open his mouth as big as possible and have him scream. They'll do it in different ways. Like one time where he's upside down and he does it, or that sort of thing. But they try to. I don't want to put this. They're trying to make us believe that these ponies are actually talking while contorting their faces like this. And all I can think is, A, ow, and B, how are you able to get discernible words out of your mouth when you're doing that?
Yeah, me personally, most of the meme faces don't bother me too much. I honestly find them really funny, even this one. However, I will fully admit that at times I feel like animators, I think you're getting a little bit too carried away at times.
I think they're just having fun.
Yeah, it is fun, but at the same time, like, it's almost not believable at times. Like, I think you guys are just trying too hard. But let's move on before we should move on before we get ourselves killed, because this is probably the one that everyone disagrees with us on.
Pull out the pitchforks.
Yes.
Wisconsin.
Your turn, Zion. Let's talk about the music.
Oh boy, let's talk about the music. Yeah. Starting with 51, some of the background music is kind of catchy, and the background tracks. I am getting a slight echo over here.
Sorry.
Hey. Okay, take it out the headphones because that's bothering me too much.
More technical difficulties.
As I was saying.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as I was saying, they do have some catchy background music, and the opening and ending is quite decent. Something I just found out recently, back early in the 90s, the ending music was used for a catchy jingle thing for, an ending credit sequence. I can't speak.
Take your time. Oh,
Don't want to take too much time.
there's that echo.
As I was saying, they used the ending music for the MLP series for something called Tempo Kids videos. It played at the beginning, and I didn't realize that until recently.
Yeah. Now let's get to the part that I know you want to stop talking.
Oh,
I had to choose this picture.
There was a song in every single episode.
Two didn't have one.
Not the point. They nearly have a song in every episode, and do we really need a song? They don't even.
They're not even sung all that well. At least half of them. Some of them are sung decently well enough, but some of them are like, you're not even trying.
I know, some of them can't even sing, and that's what bothers me. Charlie Adler, he's singing next to another character. He's not even trying to sing. He's just speaking, and there's a music track next to it. That's not singing.
Yeah, just.
It's not even rapping.
Music is definitely probably one of G1's weaker points, is that the music isn't all that great.
Yeah, it felt like they were trying to fill for time.
Yeah.
Is that a media contractual obligation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It just felt like you weren't trying at times.
Yeah. And yes, the background music, as we said, it is catchy, memorable, but but I think part of the reason for that is because they recycle a lot of background tracks.
Yeah.
For the sake, again, like this show was relatively low budget, was it?
Yes. Infamously low budget. Though G.I. Joe and Transformers also, and even Gem, did the exact same thing with their background music. They had like a certain number of tracks, and they would just inject it wherever they thought it made the most sense.
Yeah, that was the thing in the 80s. The era that I was not alive then. I'm a 90s kid.
Yeah.
But let's
Nice kid as well, but I was born in the
let's talk about
80s.
music that we like. Because if there's one thing that Friends vs. Magic has done very well, and that's music.
Yes. One thing that immediately comes to my mind is some of the songs here, and I don't really recognize them instantly. I still remember more of them. I can say that more than G1. I can't. Hands up, who remembers any song from a G1 episode?
Yep, I can agree. Like a lot of it.
Anything soft and squishy, anything vicious. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
Well, to quote you, David.
G4 superior, G1 inferior.
That's a coin of phrase, not a quote.
Right. Yeah. Almost all the songs in the show, like I can almost name them off the top of my hand. So many of them I can remember. Such good songs. But it does have a couple drawbacks, so we'll get to right now. Go ahead, Zion.
Yeah, admittedly, there are a few bland pop-like songs, but
Season 7 has been very song-light this time around.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of the movie.
Yeah, I have to imagine. So, in fact, I think season 7's been light on a lot of things, and it's been because, well, A, they're building up towards what they do in the finale, and B, yeah, the movie. I mean, it's kind of like what season 7 of TNG was, where they didn't really do much because so much resources were being dedicated to generations.
Yeah. And we're not going to be talking about Equestria Girls, but just quick comments. A lot of their songs are very have a very generic, bland poppy to the next to them, with the exception of Rainbow Rocks, which isn't almost every song. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, even for me personally, almost every song in that movie I could remember.
Yeah,
So,
they had really good songs in that movie.
And as for limited arrangement, it is a little tricky to explain. I guess to put Al's very cynical point of view to front, too much guitar.
Yeah.
No offense to guitar players, but I think it is a little overused.
Yeah, particularly the twang guitar. Like I know late season 2 through early season 3, it's like every time there was a song, it started with a twangy guitar.
But yeah, I don't want to imitate because I don't want to hurt everyone's ears. But yeah, again, we kind of had to nitpick with this one. Let's talk about the story. You're on, Al.
Oh, joy. Starting with G1, its pros were that it was more adventure-driven. Each of the episodes was typically the ponies are enjoying their peaceful lives in Dream Valley when X happens. Either a villain comes in, or an obnoxious little turn of a baby pony wishes for it to never rain again, brings about the end of life as we know it. And because it was more adventure-driven, they were willing to go with multi-part episodes. I mean, many of the stories were 4-part episodes. And
2-parters, 4-parters, and a 10-parter, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, the 10-parter. And we were given a good sense of the stakes and tension. I think it's because of things that we talked about initially, in which, there was no definite way in which the villains were going to be defeated. It's not, they'll find the Deus Ex Machina and blast the villain with it. The solutions were varied, so you couldn't assume how things were going to turn out. And they were willing to put the ponies and even their human allies in deathly danger, particularly with the cliffhangers. I mean,
Yeah.
the penultimate episode of The Magic Coins ends with Megan and Moon Whistler on a crumbling ledge of death.
Everything is on fire.
And everything's on fire. Well, no, that was when they were in the volcano. Later in the final parts where Megan's caught, where everything's on fire.
All right.
So yeah, I mean you got stakes, you got tension. It was a more thrilling generation.
Yeah, and I guess to put it in most simplest of terms, when comparing Generation 1 with Generation 4, they're kind of inverses of each other. Generation 1 was a lot more, it was a very much adventure-driven show with some slice-of-life elements, whereas with Friendship is Magic, it's primarily a slice-of-life show with a few adventure elements thrown in, if that makes any sense. Now let's get on to the cons of G1.
Now one of the cons, and this is the issue.
The double-edged sword of multi-part episodes.
Right, because they only received 61 episodes as their order, and due to Deke buying out G.I. Joe and Transformers falling flat on its face, they never got another order of episodes. So having all these multi-part episodes made it so that the series itself only had 25 stories.
Yeah, that's very low. That's like pretty much just in comparison to Friendship is Magic, just one season, if not less. Considering that the episodes in G1 are 10 minutes long, whereas Friendship is Magic is 20.
Well, like I said, it would be like if Friendship is Magic ended halfway through Sisterhood Social.
Yep.
We had too many one-off characters, and again, this goes to the shortness because, I mean, think about it. How long did it take Trixie to appear again? How long did it take Gilda to appear again? But yeah, because the stories tended to be self-contained, we never added a new character beyond the movie.
It's similar to what we said about the villains having no setup. It's just they just sort of just come out of nowhere and then they leave just as fast.
Right.
Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm here for this one adventure, and then I'll be gone forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, Friendship is Magic was doing that too until someone said, hey, let's bring these characters back.
Mm-hmm.
And also because these episodes were self-contained, there wasn't a lot of continuity. Between what happened, as we said, when the villain's defeated, it's like there's no trace of what they've done in future episodes.
There's no season-long arc.
No, there's no season-long arc.
No. But again, outside of probably the biggest offender to the multi-part Double Blade is the end of Flutter Valley, which had 10 parts, and the story itself was not particularly that interesting. And that took you basically just took a sixth of the show and cut it out for this one story. So that's where it gets kind of risky.
They took a sixth of the show and threw it in the dumpster and lit it on fire.
Yeah, let's take a bunch of flutter ponies in a prison with some honey, and they're going to be stuck there for a good chunk of the episodes.
I still kind of liked it just out of a guilty pleasure, because, again, it was what introduced me to G1.
Fair.
All right, let's move down.
All right, let's move on to G4 stories. And I know Al's going to have fun with this one. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, one of the advantages to Friendship's Magic is it's a comedy and it knows it's a comedy. And it's actually pretty good with its humor.
G1 never really had much comedy. It has its funny moments, but it never went out of its way to tell a joke. It was mostly just told its story, and if there are some humorous moments here and there, they'll throw them in. Whereas, Friendship's Magic is definitely more comedy-oriented.
Yeah, well, like I said, G1 was a thriller, while G4 was a comedy. We have more character-driven episodes because we have more episodes, period, and also we have less characters to focus on. And there is greater continuity, particularly as we've gone along. Like in season 1 and season 2, there was not a lot of continuity. We really didn't start to do the continuity thing until season 3 when Trixie reappeared and we had the season-long arc of Twilight studying, and since then we've seen, the show actually start to build on what it's built in the past, which has been to its advantage, I think, and definitely to its characters.
Want to move on to cons?
Yes.
I know you want to.
Oh dear.
Cons. One of the biggest things I've noticed about the weaker episodes is they start with an idea and then they write the episode around it. But the problem is, even if the episode would be better off without the idea, they still do it. Like with 28 Pranks Later, the episode would have been better without the zombie ponies. If they had made Rainbow Dash's prank backfire on the CMC, which would force her to admit that it was her, and make the lesson about how your actions can hurt others, it would have been better than doing the zombie pony bit, which made it yet another self-centered lesson for Rainbow Dash, who really needs to learn empathy. Bats with its turning Fluttershy into a bat. That made absolutely no sense, but dang it, they were going to have the bats.
I forgot about bats.
That's probably.
Yeah, you have a bunch of episodes where it's like when you get to the end, you know where this started, and you realize that was the biggest millstone around the episode's neck.
Almost everyone agrees with that when it comes to it isn't the main thing about you.
Oh yeah, I mean, okay, we can use magic to make a mustache grow out of the juvenile dragon's upper lip. We can instantly regenerate a chipped tooth. But we can't make your own existing main follicles grow hair faster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Conflated stakes is a little tricky, considering this is a very slice of life show.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it comes from the desire of the staff for this to be cool episode, or the cool show that everybody says it is. So they think that they have to take the stakes and raise them, only it doesn't really make much sense. And it kind of makes things come off as petty.
Speaking of petty, subpar being topical, oh my word, whenever they try to do something topical, oh my word, the controversy goes up through the roof in the fandom.
Yeah, no, seriously, this show has the most toxic anti-bullying episode ever.
Are you talking about Newbie Dash?
No, I'm talking about the episode that was dedicated to being an anti-bullying episode.
Oh, One Bad Seed.
One Bad Apple.
Yes.
Oh, One Bad Apple. Wow, I forgot. That was so long ago.
That was such a terrible message. It should, that episode should be pulled from the air and every copy of it should be burned.
Ready to make some enemies, Al? Because I'm going to tell everyone this. Al hates Tanks for the Memories.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
not the only one.
I hate that episode. I hate that episode to itty bitty little pieces. I mean, seriously, it is 20 minutes of Rainbow Dash being over the top petty. And it's like she thinks she knows what she's doing wrong, but now that she's doing it anyway, she escalates it, all because she doesn't want to be without her pet for a few months. And guess what, people? G1 did to pet that thing better. It's a standalone called Pony Puppy.
Yeah.
It does everything better.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, when we were talking about cons for this section, we were also thinking, is this show getting a little too meta for its own good?
Yes.
We've had Slice of Life, which was a fun episode, as ridiculous as it was. I enjoyed it. Then we had Stringent Than Fan Fiction, and then we had Fame and Misfortune, which was very uncomfortable to watch.
Well, the thing is, it was fun watching a whole bunch of the stupider brony questions be shot down. But I got the sense that this was the staff saying, we don't care about any criticism.
Yeah.
Our bleep don't stick. was essentially the message of that episode. So it was a real double-edged sword for me because there are legitimate issues with this show.
As much as we love the show, it's not perfect. We have our issues with it.
Right, and also now that we've gotten to the cons of G4, it's time to talk about the most direct comparison you can make between these two shows, and that is the G1 standalone episode Spike Search and Dragon Quest. This is the curb stop.
I think all four of us here agree Spike Search is better.
Way better.
Yeah.
Spike Search at every beat is the superior episode. I mean,
it has less screen time and it has a subplot which is not really even needed, and yet it pulled off its message better.
Right.
That is embarrassing.
It's like how can an episode that's half as long and has a pointless B plot have twice the substance of a 20-minute episode? But like the inciting incident, Spike Search, Spike is entering dragon puberty, so his flame's growing stronger. He's afraid he's going to hurt somebody, so he wants to find other dragons to learn how to better control his flame, compared to the ponies that made fun of Spike for not being all that dragon-like.
Dragon Quest, just quick personal story. I still remember the day when Dragon Quest was coming out. I was so hyped for it. I was so excited for it. I watched it. I was so disappointed.
Yeah,
I did not enjoy it.
And also, the thing is, Dragon Quest permanently damaged the series because when Spike Search did its coda, it made sure to say that the actions of the Dragon Camp, which were some really bad actions. I mean, actually, I want to go back. Compare in Spike Search, the dragons are shown to be bad because they burn a village, chase out all its inhabitants, steal their food, and leave the village still burning. Compared to the dragons like the rough house and raid nests.
The dragons in Dragon Quest are basically just a bunch of just jockey teams. That's it.
Right, compared to a bunch of very dangerous bandits in Spike Search. But when Spike Search went to its coda, it made sure to say these dragons don't necessarily reflect on other dragons. They're just bandits, and bandits are bad people. So there could be kind dragons like Spike out there.
Right.
Dragon Quest, in its coda, it basically said dragons as a species are a bunch of terrible people, and Spike is so lucky to have been raised by ponies.
Pretty much. And this is what I meant earlier when I said that a lot of the other races outside of the ponies in Friendship and Magic just tend to suck.
Master Race.
Yeah, Pony Master Race. That's pretty much it.
And the thing is, the template was set with this episode. I mean, let's replace dragons, yaks, and griffins with blacks, Muslims, and Jews. Do you think you'd really be able to get away with how they are portrayed in this series?
No, talking animals makes you get away with anything.
Yeah, but the thing is, Dragon Quest basically said it is okay to be racist.
Thankfully, Gauntlet of Fire somewhat fixed some of the issues, but some of the damage is still there.
Yeah, I mean, like when Ember showed up this season, and I listened to her talk, I'm like, this is like listening to the shallowest TNG Klingon ever.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I will give Dragon Quest a little bit of credit. It felt more ambitious. It definitely tried to be more heavy and more, I guess, quote unquote, deep with its message. But it just, especially in the first third. But it fell flat on its face throughout the rest, and even in the very beginning when the ponies just all make fun of him.
Yeah, but
it's just not. I don't root for them.
It was a bad message, and they were coming. The writers and the staff were coming from a very, very bad place in which they wanted to make the point that it is something about men liking things meant for women, and it's like, no, don't do that with another race. Do that with a pony, so that you can make that not a racial thing, but a personal thing.
Right. That's actually a good point. Thank you. So let's go to our final thoughts for this comparison. Zion, you go first. what are your overall thoughts on both generations? Which do you think is better?
That is a very difficult question. There are both pros and cons with both series. And I'll admit, I got into My Little Pony through G4, and I'm glad I gave G1 the chance, and I'm still glad to be a fan. However, if I'm completely honest, I still prefer G4 over G1.
Al, what do you think?
You know what, I'm so happy that you chose my angry face for this.
It describes you perfectly.
Yes, it does. Anyway, now I actually grew up with G4 when it aired on the Disney Channel in the early 90s.
G1.
Or G1. yes, Disney was truly ahead of their times. Anyway, I still prefer G1. Like, I'll say it this way. I will throw on an episode of G1 just to enjoy it.
Right.
Typically, once I've seen an episode of G4, I've gotten what I need from it, and I don't go back.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Springheart?
For me, it's definitely Gen 4 is definitely my favorite. There's lots of continuity. It's the world's defined, and just I just like it because that's the one that I did grow up with Gen 1, but I never really got into My Little Pony until this generation. But again, Gen 1 is still good. Like, it's good to just sit and for a watch and enjoy. I actually chuckle at all the animation errors. It's a good show. So I do recommend going to see it or watching it. But yeah, Gen 4 is definitely my cup of tea.
Right. And as for me, it's a really close tie. You kind of have to twist my arm and force me to choose one. If you had to, I'd probably say G4 because I think it just felt more complete. It had a better idea of what it was doing, even though it does have its flaws. It definitely has its problems. I think it has a better idea of what it's doing. It has, and again, just better animation, better music, better voice acting, better, and at least more, I guess, consistent storytelling. If that makes sense, because G1 it has its great episodes, like Return to Temblon's great, The Magic Coins is great, Mishmash Melee Al loves. There are some really good gems in there, but it has its drawbacks as well. But I am glad that slowly over time, more and more French bronies have grown more accustomed to G1 and are at the very least giving it a little bit of respect and acknowledge that it exists, and they're perfectly fine with that, because earlier on in this fandom's life, like within the first 2 or 3 years, oh my word, they almost every brony would demonize anything that was not G4, and that was terrible. It was insane, but thankfully that has mostly died down. So. But yeah, all in all, I would have to choose G4. I think it feels more satisfying, in my opinion. So with that, we only got 2 or 3 minutes left, but let's do what we can with a Q&A. So you can ask any of us any questions or comments, whether it be me or any of my co-hosts or even all of us. So, what do you have?
So who is more menacing as a villain, Tyrek G1 or Tyrek G4?
G1.
G4 was definitely more bombarding and violent, and even his creepy moment at the beginning was really cool. But no, the original Tyrek, no, his voice alone is chilling.
He threatens to behead a baby dragon should you fail him. That's terrifying.
Yeah, just to vent his frustration.
Right. You.
I had a comment on the cons for the G4 music that I think, well, I feel like that just saying that a lot of the songs have poppy production might be a matter of taste. I think an easier con to pick out might be that Ingram's lyrics have arguably gotten worse over time. He doesn't seem to put as much thought into them as he used to, and I would argue that the songs from the movie were decently okay, but I can pick out a lot of like weird lines where I would have picked a different word to make it flow a lot better.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
feel
well,
like he's putting as much work into it.
It's true. I think part of that is just the fact that it's one guy working on a show that's been going on for 7+ seasons and 3 spin-off movies and a full-length theatrical movie. You only have so much creativity in such short time.
Right, and I had, one thing we had discussed, and I said there were too many. I'm singing about the fact that I'm singing songs, like find the music in you. It's like that you have really good voices, a really good tune,
Really good beat.
really good beat, awful lyrics. It's like, how could you waste
Yeah.
all of that on those lyrics?
I still like that song. Okay, any other questions? No, I don't think so. One last thing we'll quickly say before we wrap things up because our time is up. Without giving anything away, we'll just say to my co-host here, which do you think is? I think it's pretty unanimous. Which do you think is better, My Little Pony the movie 1986 or My Little Pony the movie 2017?
2017.
2017.
2017.
Zion?
This is going to be difficult because I haven't actually seen.
Oh yeah, he hasn't seen it yet. It only just came out in the UK. But yeah.
It just came out this week.
Yeah, it comes out this week, and yeah. As not that that's saying much, considering that the original movie was definitely probably one of G1's lowest points was the movie.
Yeah. Oh man, is that movie bad? At least it's laughably bad.
True. It is hilariously bad.
Yeah,
Like, it's
and
great
the
riffing
balance
material.
is pathetic.
So, yeah, if there are no more questions or comments, I think that's all. I hope you all enjoyed it, and you can follow us on our YouTubes and DeviantArts respectively, and glad you enjoyed. Enjoy the con.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming.